Hey class, welcome to our Movement Assessment and Corrective Exercise Program video project. This group consists of Isabel Ringgold, Ariana Hans, and Nick Brown. We are all kinesiology students in Dr. Scott Lynn's Biomechanics of Musculoskeletal Injuries course at Cal State Fullerton. Our subject's name is Nick Brown. He has a history of lower back pain due to 11 years of competitive gymnastics. He has had several disc herniations, disc degenerations, and osteoarthritis of his thoracic spine. We did an FMS screening to see what common inefficiencies he may have before we prescribe him corrective exercises. So here is our first FMS screen. This is the deep squat. We can see that he has some minor inefficiencies and compensations, such as the bar above his head going past his toes. We regress this by putting his heels up, as you will see in the next video. So see, as his heels are up, his form is much better. The bar stays above his toes and his spine stays in a neutral position. We gave the FMS a 2 out of 3 because he had some compensations, but they were fixed with a common regression. Next, we have the hurdle step. The first hurdle test we see is with his right leg. Here you can see that he loses his alignment between his hips, knees, and ankles. This is an indication of low glute activation that we address later in the corrective exercises. There is also some movement above the waist, and you can see that the dowel does not remain parallel with the floor. This is an indication of core instability, which is also corrected in our exercises. Lastly, we see that there is some contact between the foot and the hurdle, so we gave this a 1 on the FMS scale. Next, we see the hurdle step on the left side. So this side is a little bit better than his right side. There is still alignment that is lost between his hips, knees, and ankles, as well as dowel movement and lumbar movement. The lumbar movement is new on this side, so it is something that we need to address later on. We gave this side a 2 on the FMS scale due to his inability to make contact with the ground and to avoid hitting the testing setup. Next, we have the inline lunge on the right side. As his right leg is forward, we see that he can raise and lower with ease, and he is balancing without falling off the board. We gave this side a 2 due to the fact that his back leg would externally rotate as he went down, as you can see here. And he continued to go farther and farther as time went on. Next, we have the inline lunge on the left side. So we can automatically see that his left side is better than his right. His foot isn't externally rotating as much, but there is still some external rotation there. We see that his back leg externally rotates, but we also see that his torso has some movement to it as well. This is also a 2 on the FMS scale. This test is used to challenge the individual's front and rear leg dynamic stability in their ankle, knees, and hips. It also shows skills in balancing and mobility. Having issues with this test has been linked to limitations in the thoracic spine region, which is where Nick has his pre-existing injuries. Next, we have the shoulder mobility test. Here on his right side, we indicated with the stick that his hands were within 10 inches of each other. And on the left side, we indicated that they were 7 inches away from each other. On his right side, we gave him a 3, and on his left side, we gave him a 2 on the FMS scale. Next, we have the active straight leg raise. On his right side, we can see no inefficiencies, but on his left side, as shown here, next, there is just a little bit of a lag. You can see that his heel does not go past the bar, and so we gave him a 2 on the FMS scale. We gave him hamstring stretches in the corrective exercises to help improve this. Next is the trunk stability push-up test. As we can see, his form is good. He is not shaking, and his spine remains neutral. He has no inefficiency and gains an overall 3 on the FMS test. The last is the rotary stability test on the ipsilateral side. This is the hardest of all of the tests, and we will see that with his difficulty to advance here. This did prove too difficult for Nick, although he did not fall over, so we regressed it as a contralateral side. He did much better contralaterally, but we still do see some spine flexion in his in position. Overall, we gave him a 2 on this exam as well. Finally, here is a full results and inefficiencies test. Feel free to pause the video and take a look for further information. Overall, he gained a pre-existing score of 14 on the FMS scale. This is less than most athletes, but Nick is no longer an athlete, so we will go from here to see where we can help him bring his score up. Corrective exercises day 1. On day 1, we decided to start with glute activation by doing some hip bridges. We use a band above his knees to activate his glute med and max in order to externally rotate his hips. This exercise helps improve the hurdle step because it works on his hip stability. We noticed he was feeling some of this exercise in his back, so on day 2, you will see what adjustments we made in order to fix this. Next, we did side marching. We decided to do side marching in a psoas pinch. This activates the psoas and deactivates the superficial hip flexors. We use the bands again to keep the glute max and med activated. We are doing this in order to stabilize his movement in the frontal plane. This will help Nick with his overall balance and allow him more control in his frontal plane movement. Next, we have the push-up shoulder touch for rotary stability. We noticed quite a few inefficiencies in Nick's rotary stability, so doing hand taps in the push-up position is a great way to work it out. This works his internal and external oblique muscles and will give him more stability when doing bird dogs. We see that the stick on Nick's back, here and here, is still wobbling a great deal, so we modified this on day 2. Next, we have the inline half-kneeling stability test, and this is on his right side. As we see here, Nick is still going to be wobbling because of low core activation. This test works both core and medial glutes. On his left side, we see that we have a lot more deficiencies. After being pushed just a little bit harder than as seen before, we will see that Nick loses his balance right here. The last exercise we deemed appropriate for day 1 was the follow-up exercise to the active straight leg raise. This drastically improved Nick's range of motion as seen from the before and after photos. This shows that Nick has tight hamstrings and he should continue to stretch in this manner. Day 2 of corrective exercises. We decided to add some new exercises. Because Nick was feeling pain in his back during the glute bridges on day 1, we decided to regress the exercise, adding a bar and some light resistance bands. As Nick brings the bar towards his waist, he is activating his core muscles. Then, as he bridges up, he feels no pain in his back. This exercise was incredibly effective for him. On day 2's half-kneeling stability pose, we decided to give him a stick to place in front of him in order to regress the exercise. He was not ready to do this with his normal base of support, so adding the stick increases his base of support. We can see that he's automatically doing a lot better, and he can stabilize himself more. We can see that he's not falling over no matter how much I'm pushing him. Next, on his left leg, we saw some great improvements. As seen earlier in this video, he got pushed over so hard that he got out of position. Here, I was pushing him much harder, and he still only wobbled a little bit, but never left his footing position. Next, we brought back the shoulder taps. With this time, we have the stick on the lumbar lordotic curvature. You will see when the video starts that after this first one, we had him bring his hands closer together and his feet wider apart, as seen right here. This increases his base of support, and you will see that the stick will wobble a lot less. This indicates that his obliques, which are our rotary stability muscles that are targeted in this exercise, are engaged. Next, we have forward marching, which is a gluteal activation. We added resistance bands in order to really show that his glutes were activating. This works on mobility and strength training in the glutes, abs, and hips. Watch as he stays in a psoas pinch and works his glutes by actively pushing against the bands. This exercise helps with the hurdle step because it gives him the ability to keep the alignment between his hips, knees, and ankles. This also helps with the deep squat exercise. Next, we have the contralateral bird dog with the ball on his lordotic curvature. It's another rotary stability test. This time, adding the racquetball, we can have a closer look at how his spine is actually moving. In the first half of this exercise, in the out section, he uses his erector spinae muscles in order to keep his spine neutral and to work on anti-extension. In the second half, or the in phase, he uses his rectus abdominis and abdominal obliques in order to stop trunk flexion. Overall, we focused on gaining glute strength as well as abdominal strength. Weaknesses in these areas are common in those with back injuries and the insufficiencies we spotted in the FMS testing. Thank you for your time and have a nice day.